How many range-topping bikes have been released in the past 6 months? I can count 6. Brands seem to be firing them out at the moment, and they seem dead set on making sure that everyone is riding a carbon fibre rocket ship. But I don't think that you need one, but maybe not for the reasons that you might expect. Before I explain my thinking, I think it's important to make sure that we're on the same page about what a superbike really is. For me, it has to be something at the cutting edge of technology, something that's been recently released and is possibly being raced by professionals. So think specialised tarmacs, giant propels and Colnago V4 RSs. You get the sort. Usually, they have a pretty hefty price tag attached to them, and these days, sadly, that tends to be a 5-figure number. Now, they've been created with the intention of being the fastest thing on the road to save as many watts as possible and to turn your spinning legs into KOMs. The hallmarks of a superbike will usually be deeply sculpted high-grade carbon frames with deep section wheels and a range-topping group set like Shimano Dura-Ace, SRAM Red or a Campagnolo Super Record. You may also spot watt-saving gadgets like oversized pulley wheels, integrated cockpits and ceramic bearings. It's of course these things which differentiate a bike from being just a really good bike to being a superbike. There's no denying that if you really want to be as fast as possible out on the road, then a superbike will make up one part of the puzzle in getting you there. However, if you look at the entire range of bikes that's offered from a brand, you can always find models with a lower specification, but with many of the same features. For example, look at my Canyon Ultimate here. You can go and buy the top-end Ultimate CFR for nearly £11,000 here in the UK, or you could get this Ultimate SLX for nearly £6,500. That's 40% cheaper, but the difference in real-world speed won't be that large. This is because the bike enjoys exactly the same frame shape, the same handlebars, and still features deep section wheels. Now, while I'm not trying to fool anyone into thinking that £6,500 is a small amount of money, it is, however, a vast reduction from the range-topping offering. Sure, the carbon layup is different. The SLX is about 480 grams heavier, and the wheels are a bit more standard compared to the Zip 353 NSWs found on the CFR. But when you consider you'll be enjoying all the benefits of a power meter, a second-tier electronic 12-speed group set, and the latest design cues found on the bike's bigger brother, you really have to wonder why coughing up that extra money is worth it when you consider real-world speed. There's one thing that I absolutely love about superbikes, and that is the way that they look. I've always been a big fan of the imaginative shapes, the constant pursuit to make them look cleaner, faster, and more slippery in the wind than ever before. But much like my last point, these design cues can be found on other bikes. You just have to look lower down in the range. Sure, they may not be as uncompromising, and the lack of top-end components may soften their impact a little, but the frame shapes themselves won't change. A lot of superbikes feature drop seat stays, and this is because it helps improve comfort and aerodynamics. It's now not uncommon to see them on bikes costing around £1,000. This is a clear example of how design innovation really does make its way down to those lower echelons. Back in 2022, when I reviewed Shimano's third-tier 105 Di2 group sets, one of my key takeaways was how good it looked. I fully believe that if you had an unmarked 105, Ultegra and Dura-Ace group set side by side, you'd struggle to figure out which was which. Really, in some instances, the more affordable tech really does hold a candle to the best. When top-end bikes are being designed and tested in the wind tunnel, they're done so in the most aerodynamic position, which is also the most aggressive position. Obviously, this is because it's the fastest. Of course, for professionals who spend a lot of time training their flexibility and core strength, this isn't a problem because they can hold that position for hour after hour. However, for us mere mortals, it's more than likely that we don't possess the same abilities as our heroes. And this results in us riding in a more upright position, and then you have to wonder, how much of a benefit are you actually getting if you aren't riding the bike as it was originally designed? It's not just about the aerodynamic benefits, but also how the bike feels underneath you. Again, as I say, bikes are designed with the stem slammed to the head tube. This also means that the way the bike handles and responds has been fine-tuned from this position. Now, if you start sliding headset spaces onto the steerer tube and altering the geometry of the bike, then it's not going to feel as good. My recommendation is to always get a bike fit before you purchase a bike. This means that whatever you end up buying will fit you, and you can look for a bike which most closely matches the limits of your flexibility and body size. Ideally, you want to go as close to the position that the bike was originally designed for to get the most out of it, rather than buying a bike and then trying to make it fit retrospectively, which will then ultimately end up in a great bike not feeling as good. This is why endurance bikes generally have much taller head tubes with slacker angles, as it reduces the need for headset spaces and stem length reductions. One thing we all know about superbikes, and something you've heard me bang on about this entire video, is the unrelenting desire for superbikes to be fast. It's in their very nature. However, that speed isn't exclusively down to wind-sculpted carbon, but instead, the quest for save watts infiltrates every single part of the bike. Components can be manufactured to be lighter, stiffer, more aero, and more efficient. Take the latter, for example, efficiency. One option manufacturers have is to employ the use of ceramic bearings. Now, while a set of these bearings in your wheels can make them spin seemingly forever, they also don't quite have the same longevity to them. Not forgetting that these bearings are best used in the most optimal of conditions. Think dry roads and warm sunshine. Another prime example of this are the tyres you find on range-topping bikes. Obviously, they'll be equipped with range-topping rubber, but while they may be incredibly fast, they'll be prone to punctures and of course, just won't last that long. The point here is that there's a plethora of products out there to help you save as many watts as possible, but it's always worth considering what the cost of that is, and it usually tends to be longevity. In a similar vein to my last point, when these components do give up the ghost and need replacing, it can be a pretty uncomfortable experience for your bank balance. Superbikes are incredibly expensive to purchase. There's no escaping that, but never forget or overlook the cost involved with servicing. While it shouldn't be a surprise that replacing parts like for like will be expensive, the labour cost involved can be a fair bit higher than a normal bike too. For example, superbikes can have more intricate routing for hosing, which can take time to navigate. However, once a bike is set up and rolling on the road, you just want to be careful not to damage any of the bike's more delicate parts. In the instance that you damaged and needed to replace your Dura-Ace rear derailleur, which isn't uncommon, then one of those will set you back £700 here in the UK. And even if you are careful with the components, the wearable parts also aren't cheap. For example, a new Dura-Ace chain anchor set could cost you near £400. Sure, you could replace it with a cheaper alternative like Ultegra, but doesn't that slightly defeat the point of having a superbike in the first place? If you'd be happy to replace it with Ultegra, why not just have it from the get-go and save yourself from that initial cost? While I'm not trying to tell anyone how to spend their own money, everyone of course has their own view on what constitutes good value. Just be aware of the environment in which that bike will be operating. If you're looking for speed, ask yourself, have you nailed your kit choice, your nutrition, your training plan? There are a lot of things that you can control via good consistency and discipline, which will reap greater rewards than what a superbike can deliver. Perhaps a superbike should be seen as a last-ditch secret weapon which helps unlock any potential remaining speed. The options available to us for half the price or even less are still going to propel you down the road at a rate of knots. What do you think about this though? Do you think that superbikes are at risk of rendering themselves pointless when there's so many great options out there which don't sacrifice real-world speed and still maintain a good level of longevity? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then please do drop it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you again very soon.